Hello, this is Eleanor Hines, Northbound Baykeeper, lead scientist from Resources, talking with John Guenther, site manager from Department of Ecology. We are on the South Bay Trail, just north of where the trail crosses the railroad tracks, and at the base of where the gas plant was located. Looking up at the steep slope, John, can you tell us about how the contaminants located on this slope will be addressed?
Yeah, the steep slope and railroad right-of-way bisect the upper and lower parts of the park. The slope includes vertical bedrock outcrops, steep, unstable soil slopes, and less steep areas covered by soil and vegetation. We found elevated concentrations of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, in soil on portions of the steep slope. Due to the steepness and instability of the slope in most areas, we will be primarily relying on institutional controls in the form of fencing, signage, and vegetation to prevent contact with contaminated soil in this area. We want to maintain the mature vegetation already present on the steep slope, so only areas where bare contaminated soil are exposed may be covered if practicable.
Thanks. Now, because of gravitational forces, there is the potential for contamination to travel down the slope and into the bay. Can you explain how this will be addressed and how groundwater will be treated and monitored to ensure permanent protection?
The conceptual site model developed for the site during preparation of the remedial investigation work indicates that soil is not being transported from the upper part of the park to the lower part of the park. Any erosion that might occur on the steep slope is contained by the flat terrace at the toe of the slope and the railroad right-of-way. However, due to gravitational forces, or what a hydrogeologist might call the hydraulic gradient, some groundwater does find its way down the slope and into the lower part of the site. The combination of anthropogenic contaminated soil fill and contaminated groundwater from the upper part of the site has resulted in both soil and groundwater contamination in the lower park area of the site. Prior to the interim action that was completed in 2017 and 2018, wave action and flooding during winter storms would erode and result in potentially contaminated soil entering the bay. The cleanup action selected for the shoreline is an engineered revetment. The revetment will reduce the likelihood of flooding and prevent erosion. The hydrogeology of the site is relatively complex. The upper part of the park has very little groundwater, though it accumulates seasonally in subsurface depressions on the surface of the bedrock beneath a thin veneer of soil fill. The groundwater finds its way down the steep slope either over the surface of or through fractures in the underlying sandstone bedrock. At the toe of the steep slope, groundwater flows or follows preferential pathways through the railroad right-of-way into the fill underlying the lower part of the park. The lower part of the site is flat and the hydraulic gradient is minimal. The rate of groundwater discharge to the bay is slow and it is also inhibited by tidal influence from the bay. The highest concentrations of contaminants in groundwater are at the toe of the steep slope. Groundwater in this area will be treated by in situ enhanced bioremediation. A variety of in situ bioremediation technologies, like injecting air or oxidizing chemicals into the groundwater, will be evaluated and the most appropriate and effective treatment method will be selected. This treatment technology would target benzene and naphthalene. Groundwater in other portions of the site would be addressed using monitored natural attenuation. PAHs are expected to attenuate prior to reaching the shoreline. Lighter organic contaminants in groundwater are expected to degrade biologically. Cyanide in groundwater is also expected to attenuate to acceptable concentrations before reaching the shoreline. The combination of these technologies and processes are anticipated to effectively treat the groundwater before it reaches and enters the bay. Compliance monitoring at a conditional point of compliance will be established to ensure the effectiveness of the cleanup action.
Thank you so much for that information, John. We will now journey to the Pocket Beach just on the other side of the railroad tracks.